Welcome back, and Owen's here for a look at the day's business news. Hello again, Owen. A quiet day on the markets so far, but Greece remains unresolved going into key EU summits this week.
Yeah, it doesn't seem, it doesn't seem to be worrying the European markets too much, Claire, but it has been a quiet day so far, as you say. Chinese Lunar New Year, it is the year of the dragon, isn't it? So most of the Asian markets closed, not a fat lot of trading being done so far. The European markets, a little bit flat at the opening bell. As you say, over the weekend, there were more talks in Greece over a vital bond swap. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. The Asian markets as well, as I say, a very quiet day. Just the Nikkei trading and ended the day pretty flat, just edging down into the red, but don't read too much into that. Excuse me. Don't read too much into that. It has, as I say, been the very low volumes. Just worth mentioning Olympus as well, the Japanese camera maker, really back from the brink. In fact, its share is nearly up at 10% this Monday. That was the first day's trading after Japanese financial authorities announced that Olympus would not be delisted from the Tokyo Stock Exchange as a result of that massive false accounting scandal that has dogged the company for the past 3 or 4 months. Olympus has been fined $130,000, but many would say that this company is actually managing to put the worst of this scandal behind it, and that's very much reflected in the share price, which has really rebounded over recent weeks.
Moving on now to the end of an era for BlackBerry with not one but 2 high-level resignations.
Yeah, this is huge news, really. Yeah, this is the co-founders of Research in Motion, the Canadian firm, which makes the BlackBerry, not one of them, but both of them, deciding to call it a day at that firm over the weekend. This is Mike Lazaridis, the founder of BlackBerry, and Jim Bulletin. Now, between them, they built RIM up into Canada's biggest firm by market capitalisation, worth some $88 billion at one stage. They've handed the reins over to Torsten Heinz. He's an insider. He's been with the company for the last 4 years, and he is the man who will now drive this company on as the CEO. So both these two founders, Lazaridis and Bulletin, will remain on the board, but have very much handed over the day-to-day running.
This is the culmination of a very turbulent year at RIM. What went wrong?
Well, where do you start, Claire? Basically, we've seen the share price for RIM collapse down more than 70% over the last 12 months. And really, it's essentially BlackBerry failing to move with the times a little bit. And if you had to sum it up in one word, it would probably be Apple. The BlackBerry has been sideswiped by not just the iPhone, but the iPad now as well. In fact, BlackBerry's Playbook, their tablet computer, launched last year after huge delays, is actually being outsold by the iPad, some 74-1. It sold around 115,000 units in the last quarter. At the same time, that Apple was shifting more than 1 million units of the iPad. Remember, there were server crashes as well. Lots of BlackBerry users very frustrated during 2011. There you go, you were one of them, a personal experience. The server crashes as well meant blackouts, and also BlackBerry was running into trouble with various governments around the world, including many in the Middle East, worried about its encryption service, its BlackBerry Messenger service, and the fact that they basically couldn't see what kind of messages people were sending.
So what do you think the solution is then for this company?
Well, I mentioned the encrypted messages. That's really BlackBerry's USP, the fact that it's got this very, very secure system. That's why most companies like it. That's why most CEOs, most high-level executives use BlackBerry as the favoured form of communication. But that's starting to change now, really. The iPhone, for example, you can use email on it. It's fairly secure. Lots of companies are now deciding that maybe they'll let their employees use the iPhone instead, which has got so many more apps on it. And maybe that's the key for BlackBerry. It's a company that's shunned operating systems like Android, which has lots of applications to do its own thing, and maybe it needs to tie it with Android to open itself up to more applications, because that's certainly where the future seems to lie for the moment.
Right, let's now get a few more of the day's business stories. The latest negotiations to secure a second bailout for Greece have ended without a final deal. Representatives of private bondholders say around 90 of them are backing a bond swap that will write off up to 70% of their current investments for longer-term ones, but the remainder are holding out for higher interest to compensate their losses. The Greek government says it needs 100% agreement to ensure a second €130 billion bailout is forthcoming.
The liquidation of cross-channel ferry company Sea France is expected to be completed later this Monday. Around half the firm's 800 employees are being made redundant, while around 200 will be redeployed with parent company SNCF. Sea France went bankrupt last year, but a highly publicised attempt to turn itself into a workers' cooperative was rejected by the courts.
And IKEA is withholding any further expansion into India. The Swedish furniture maker's chief executive says he's concerned about a new Indian law requiring single-brand retailers to source a third of their goods locally. The law was passed earlier this month to ease Indian fears about opening up the retail sector to foreign companies.
Well, next here on Business, the flamboyant alleged pirate at the centre of the latest battle over the internet. Mega Upload founder Kim.com has been remanded in custody in New Zealand this Monday while authorities discuss an extradition deal with the United States. The US want him on charges that he's illegally ripped off millions of dollars worth of TV and movie rights. But supporters claim that Mega Upload is simply protecting internet freedom.
Big name celebrity endorsements, 50 million visitors a day, 180 million registered users. Once the 13th most visited site on the internet, its homepage now looks like this, shut down by the FBI. The site's founder, Kim.com, has been arrested and his assets seized. He's accused of making $175 million off media piracy. His website, megaupload.com, is a web hosting tool. Users can post files too big to email in an online locker and then share them with friends. Authorities allege the site is filled with movies and TV shows in violation of a host of copyright laws, which has cost rights holders $500 million in lost revenue.
It is basic theft. There is no ands, ifs or buts about it. It's theft.
Since early 2000, authorities have been cracking down on illegal file-sharing sites. In May 2002, media giant Bertelsmann turned Napster into a legal platform for music sharing. Other sites haven't been so lucky. Pirate Bay in Sweden was shut down in May 2006. Media analysts say the problem comes down to money.
This is all about controlling the content and the creativity and maximizing the money. Hollywood and the music industry aren't willing to move on.
In the wake of the arrest, several websites, including Uploaded.to and FileSonic, have disabled their file-sharing services.
Just before we go, Claire, a little bit more on the news wires regarding the Greece bond swap deal. The lobbying groups for that's led by the Institute of International Finance, saying they have made their maximum offer on that bond swap. That's essentially them saying that they're not really willing to go further than around 70% in writing off their investments. That would equate in terms of what they're expecting in terms of interest rates between 3% and 4%. Now, the EU and the IMF, they're pushing these bondholders to accept a lower interest rate in terms of that bond swap, and that would give the Greek government just a little bit more breathing room in terms of its huge debt. So you can see still some way to go. No concrete deal on that. The EU will take that out of their hands a little bit with that finance ministers meeting and, of course, that EU summit on January the 30th as well. So still some way to go on that.
All right, thanks very much, Owen. Owen there with a look at the day's business news. That's it for now. More news coming up in just a few minutes. Thanks for watching. Don't go away.